Hi again then folks, and welcome to, of course, the 6th build out of 10 in Special Projects Pack number 6. This is definitely the build out of all 10 which is the most modest, and the most simple, and the most subtle, and also the most nostalgic perhaps for some of our older Forza players in particular, because this is a car which I have, if I recall correctly, replicated before in the past of Gran Turismo, maybe even more than once, I can't recall, but it's the original Viper ACR. Most people know like the 2008 shape with the stripes and the wing, and of course more like the 2013 shape as well, the last of the ACR Vipers. Not so many people know about this one though. It's very visually understated, and unlike the later cars, this was more like a competition package rather than an entirely separate car. So you could have this as an extra on your Viper GTS rather than, you know, the crazy wing and the stripes and all that. Some owners doubtless did that themselves, because this did, of course, have some of the benefit of the racing Vipers. That was the whole point of having that infused into the road car. We are running real-world specs as a reference, so from what I could find, and of course, as always, there is some conjecture and contradiction based on who you ask, but 466 horses and 1,526 kilos. So it's not a crazy difference. Like I said, it's more of a package than a completely different model, but still, the Viper is already so good that anything you do to it is going to make it that much better, at least generally speaking. We do, of course, have the subtle ACR badging. This is, incidentally, one of the liveries that I've done myself as well. It's a pretty simple one. I've added the ACR badges. I've made it available in, I think it's 3 colours, if I recall correctly, red, blue, and black. And most notably with the ACR, it has those different wheels, which is one of the easiest ways to tell. Now, in terms of the tuning, unsurprisingly, you don't really need to do that much to it, and for a road car, of course, still being on sports tyres, the point level is pretty damn good. 568 gives you a lot of room to play with. We've got the sports air filter, because that is actually one of the things that was improved on the real car. The intake is more efficient, giving the car more power. The sports brake pads, you want your stage 1 weight, which of course takes off way too much weight, but then we add it again to the right amount with ballast. Sports hards are of course what we're going with, which it already comes with. The power restrictor you don't need for this one. You do, as I said, need the ballast though. For the semi-racing stuff, I've gone for the racing crank on this particular car. Then, as far as the rest, we have the height adjustable sports suspension. So not full race suspension, of course, but you do want that extra bit of stiffness and the ride height adjustability, etc. For the racing stuff, there is nothing fitted there, likewise for Extreme, and likewise for Ultimate. So like I said, very, very simple tune to do. Now, if we jump back into the garage, I will of course show you the other parts that we've done in terms of tuning the car, rather than upgrades. Hard tyres are fitted, of course. For the suspension, we've got 95mm on the ride height. Being sports, of course, you cannot change the anti-roll. We've got 35 for the dampers on the compression, 45 for the rebound, 2.05 for frequency, a little bit of camber, you don't really need too much, 0.8 front and rear, and of course with the toe you can't adjust those either. The diff, of course, was stock, NOS isn't fitted, standard transmission, power restrictor and ECU aren't affected. We've got 130 kilos of ballast to bring us up to the real world weight of 1526. I've put that just a little bit toward the front. Still a 49-51 split though. The downforce on the back, of course, isn't adjustable, as you can see. And over here you can see the parts which we have fitted. So like I said, it's a dead easy build to do. There's very little to it. And of course, all that remains is to jump out to Laguna Seca to show you what it can do in practice. Now, out of all the tunes in pack number 6, this is definitely the one which, if you did a side-by-side comparison between the standard car and the build, would probably have the least difference in lap time, I would imagine. Yes, it would be quicker, but there's not necessarily going to be a massive gulf between the two. But that's fairly authentic to the real Viper. The real thing was quicker, it was more powerful, it was lighter, sharper, but it's not necessarily as radical of a difference as the later ACRs were. You know, the difference between the SRT10 and the 2008 ACR is pretty vast. You know, like 100 horsepower separates those cars, so a massive difference. With this first generation, not so much. It is, though, a very, very special package of Viper, and one which, for Forza fans, is definitely a hit of nostalgia, and for some other Gran Turismo-based fans, you might not be as familiar with. So, of course, I hope you enjoy the car. I mean, it's a Viper, so it's already a deceptively good car. They were fantastic for racing, and let's be honest, say what you will about American engines, but the Viper, for such a cartoonish car, it's basically a real-life Hot Wheels toy, it is a damn good car when it comes to performance, far better than it really has any right to be. This definitely continues that, but sharpens things up just that little bit more, much like a competition package on a BMW, for example, like an M2 or an M4. So if you decide to use the tune and one of the colours that I built for it, of course, I hope you enjoyed the car. Of course, check out the other cars and the other builds in pack number 6, and stick around for the rest on the channel. But for now, as always, thanks for watching.